Welcome to GBH Amplifies. I'm Ron Bell, your host. Our topic for today is what does it really take to build community? Stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of GBH Amplifies, right here at the Boston Public Library in the Back Bay. Today we have two exciting guests. Dr. Carolyn Crockett, she is the professor of urban history, public policy, and planning at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And we also have Bishop William E. Dickerson. He is the senior pastor at Greater Love Tabernacle in Dorchester. In a world that seems like it's constantly trying to divide and isolate us, stoking outrage and addicting us to our screens, it is vitally important to reinforce our valued social frameworks. How can Boston's Black community remain resilient in the face of these forces that are at odds with notions of unity and strength? Both Dr. Carolyn Crockett and Bishop Dickerson are two examples of people building social cohesion in Boston's Black community and beyond by using a strategy of connection to the past through the pioneering accomplishment of activists and preserving institutional knowledge by way of hacking the archive project, and from person to person, family to family, and neighborhood to neighbors, like in Greater Love Tabernacle Church. From the work we have each done in the community building, I think it's safe to say that we understand the importance of putting boots on the ground and having a good street game. We are not just doing social slick media strategies or holding splashy rallies. Today, we hope we can explore those ideas in theory and philosophy as we draw on our personal experiences and projects, our own success and failures. It is an important topic for a time when people are feeling frustrated with the state of their politics and culture. So let's talk about how people feel. Today's talk, how do you really build community? So I'm going to start with you, Dr. Crockett. You know, when I participated in hacking the archives, I felt really good. We would go to the meetings. You know, Dawn and I, who's my colleague, we would come out of that meeting feeling really good. Bishop Dickerson, same with you. When I go to Greater Love, I feel the spirit. And you work outside the four walls of the church, and you bring a lot of folks together. So, Carolyn, what is happening in that space?
Yeah, well, you know, first I want to thank you, Ron, for bringing us together.
Thank you.
And I really want to recognize how you have been such a long-distance runner, witness and organizer for the power of bringing people together to think about what's possible. So I come to this, although I'm a professor, I come to this work as a student. And in some ways, I'm extremely humbled to be at this table with you and Bishop Dickerson, folks who have been engaged in the work of bringing people together for repair, for connection, for community building in the Black community and in so many communities in Boston for a long, long time. I'm also sitting here thinking about the fact that I'm a lover of history, and 290 years ago, Prince Hall was someone who was born here in Boston and really committed himself to thinking about freedom and justice for all Bostonians, and particularly Black Bostonians. And although, you know, we're standing here about to commemorate, the 250th year of revolution, that I think the fight for justice and freedom for Black people here goes far beyond that. Prince Hall and his fight for education, his fights for justice, the creation of free masonry is a legacy in the city. And so much of my work has been about inviting people into a deeper consideration of collective memory and action. And I've been so grateful to be able to not only to learn from so many folks, again, like the two of you here, but to figure out what that means today. Myself as a Bostonian, you all know I was born and raised in the city in Dorchester. And so a lot of the struggle of trying to understand what is our larger history, what is our larger connection, and also what are we owed
Right.
by the city and by the country. And so for me, bringing up even again, the Patriot of Prince Hall gives us a much longer timeline to consider, and the fact that we stand on the shoulders of nearly 3 centuries or so of folks who have been really forcing us into a conversation and inviting us into a conversation to say, what does it mean to be engaged in multi-generational struggle?
Right.
What does that mean politically, culturally, economically, and what is the inheritance of young people who are in the city today? So to me, this conversation and so much of our work is connected into big questions that are really challenging us to lean into our history, our memories, our inheritances, and make good on that. And so
Right.
again, first, just really want to recognize you and so much of the work that you have done politically. I'm thinking about the statewide Black clergy work that you've done, so much of your work for Governor Patrick. I mean, I could go through your whole bio. I don't want to embarrass you. But it's really important to understand that we are all connected in all these
Yes.
projects that can seem so separate. So whether I'm doing work in my neighborhood or I'm doing work at MIT or even this larger project of hacking the archive, which is really bringing in many, many institutions across the city to ask these questions, it's definitely work that we couldn't and should not do alone. So I really come here with a spirit of gratitude and really trying to ask people, what else can we be doing?
Right.
Because I think the moment is really demanding that we do more, and it's demanding that we do it in a way that really rejects silos
Right.
that we can often be put into as Black diasporas. But we have to actually understand that our best and most powerful fights have always been multi-generational, multiracial, multilingual, and global. And so that's what I'm here to talk more about, but really excited for, again, for the chance to be a bear witness to it.
Well, thank you. Bishop,
The same question?
same question.
Yeah. Again, I want to thank you, Ron, for inviting me, and as echo what Dr. Crocker said in regards to your activism and your consistency throughout the years.
Yeah.
And we're partnering on a lot of things.
A lot of things.
Over the years, you know. And so what we try to do at Greater Love, and not try to do what we have done, we go to the streets, go to where the people are, go to the prisons, go to hospitals, and go to places that other people may not necessarily want to go. We'll go and advocate for someone, the courthouse, and bringing people together to talk about real solutions in terms of not just their spirituality, but their economics, the social situation that they're in. And so I love it when she said that the multi-generational approach, because we sometimes think that the young ones are going to lead and the older ones are going to step aside. But that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
We have to have that connectivity. And when we do that together, that kind of cohesion and respect for the different generations, we could do a lot. Like in our church, you know, we have different generations of people, different ethnicities of people. And because of that, we're able to learn from one another.
Right.
And I always tell people that when you can learn from somebody is better than when you can hate someone, because we hate people out of indifference, out of ignorance, you know. And a good example, like we have connected with the Jewish community over the years. And I've when I was a little boy, the first man who brought me to a baseball game when I was about 8 years old was a guy named Weinstein, right? And we were in a community that we're leaving out of, but we were connecting with them. And then there are people from, you know, Caribbean islands, from Africa and different places that we learn from them and we share with others so that they can build upon that understanding of cultures so we can empower ourselves with knowledge and help others that are coming behind us, you know. So we've done that. I mean, I've been pastoring for 35 years now, but I've been dealing with activism over 40 years.
Yeah, because the work we did at Mission Hill, when I was the executive director during Mission Hill, we lived during some tough times.
Yeah.
We had the Stewart case, we had stop and frisk, but we've had some very good times because during the budget crisis, the church stepped in with the communities and we were open 7 days a week from 7 to 12, 7 to 12 p.m.
Right.
at night,
Right.
Monday through Sunday. And believe me, it was hard being a deacon and hard being the executive director. So I never hardly went home. So
yeah.
that was
No, that's
difficult.
right.
But I will say this, that right now in this moment, we need to meet the moment, because when I see images on TV, like the immigration raids and the George Floyd, the anniversary, the 5th-year anniversary, people are numb. They don't know what to do. Dr. Crockett, what do you tell people when they're sitting around in fear and when they're sitting around not knowing what to do?
I think that, again, I mean, for me, history gives us so many receipts of moment of terror and chaos that precede this. And although we often talk about the current political climate and moment as unprecedented, in some ways that is very much the case. And yet I do feel like thinking back to previous activists or our ancestors, there's so much to be learned there. And again, for me, the example of Prince Hall, I'm not quite sure why he feels so present for me today, but is instructive, because I think about people who had been engaged in struggle, Black people, Indigenous people engaged in a struggle for democratic practice before there was democracy.
Right.
And so we think about the creation of the United States as the moment of truth, as the moment of freedom. But again, if we're taking a timeline that goes much farther back than that, I think we have to be engaged in a much more serious conversation that Afro and Indigenous people have been engaged in for generations and generations that precede the U.S. moment or the U.S. experiment. And so in recognizing the amount of violence, the amount of genocide, the amount of censorship that has been involved in our longer national story, that it invites us to be engaged in a corrective moment. And so you ask me, what do I say to people? What do I say to students? What do I say to colleagues? I say, this is the moment to fight. To stand really firm in our values and our convictions, but also not to think that we are so special or so exceptional that we cannot reach out to broader memories, broader struggles, again, for me, that precede even the creation of the country. So again, Prince Hall, our Indigenous brothers and sisters, Africans that were kidnapped to be brought here, offer us lessons in terms of what it means to create the future that we need, because I am situated in a university setting.
Right.
University settings are fundamentally about creating the community, creating the society and the communities that we most that we need, that we demand. And so in some ways they are experimental pods, right? And they need to be protected. And so the fact that we are also in a moment where knowledge, where information, where the media is under such a vile attack, it means that we have to, again, I believe, double down on our sense of our longer sense of time and memory, and go deeper in terms of our steadfastness for fighting for what we know we need, and we know what we need is none of what we're experiencing at this moment. In fact, quite the opposite.
Right. Well, one of the things that we did for Dunk the Vote was we developed the Black Book. If you want one, we have a live audience. If you have any questions, please go to the microphone. And if you want to get a Black Book, make sure you can get it right there with our manager, producer, Annie. So Bishop Dickinson, we lived through the busing of the 70s, Stewart case of the 80s, stop and frisk in the Mission Hill community. You're a young pastor. I'm a young executive director. I was the youngest director in the department, the city of Boston. How did we get through that? And now, 36 years later, we're faced with the same thing. When I see television and images on TV, it gives me a trigger.
Right.
Because it reminds me of them times.
Right.
What do you do in Greater Love and other projects that you work on? Because I'm not going to just limit you to the church.
Right.
To get people some hope.
Well, we're very intentional about prayer, but we don't use prayer as a means of escape. We use it as a prayer, as a means of empowerment. So after you're empowered, you get with people who are like-minded, who really want to go forward and not backwards, right? And then be very unapologetic about who you are, authentically. As like, for example, I'm a Black man, all right, and I'm proud of who I am, and I don't want it to be watered down in order to be accepted in some other type of circle or setting. And that's what's happening in Boston. When you stand up and speak out against things that are actually attacking Black men, then you're asked to reshape what you're trying to do. Okay, well, it's not we're helping these Black men do X, Y, and Z. We're helping these Black fathers do X, Y, and Z. No, we're helping Black and brown, or we're helping Black X, Y, whatever. Just deal with it. Like, for example, I'm a former school teacher.
Right.
So I've realized a lot of dropouts were young men who happen to be Black in an urban setting. So there are people, like, for example, just recently, Dr. Jawanza Kajufu passed away, and he had the book on the volumes of the conspiracy to destroy Black males. And I met with him, I interviewed him years and years ago, right? And to have a mindset of being progressive, people label you, as being unrealistic, as not wanting to work with them and whatnot. He said, I'm willing to work with anyone, but don't deny me of who I am and what I've accomplished and the hurts and the pains of my people, all right, in order to satisfy or placate someone else so they don't feel bad or guilty about any of their understanding of our history,
Right.
So I think the educational piece is real important, prayer, organizing, educating our young people, and then moving forward with a plan of action. Something very simple as connecting with each other by saying hello to one another.
Yes.
All right? Understanding from block to block. We do that at times. Say who we are and say hello. Because sometimes people, if they don't know your story, they may assume that you were born with a silver spoon. They may assume you don't have the same adversities that they have and you've not dealt with the same challenges. So I think getting to know one another is very key, and then being able to know where you're going and go in that right direction as relates to positivity and progression.
Community organizing 101, meet people where they are, talk about things they think are important, and then take action. We have a question from the audience. You want to state your name, where you're from?
I'm Lamerchi Frazier. I'm from Dorchester right now, presently, and very happy about this panel. Thank you, GBH, and thank you, Ron Bell, for bringing these two experts to us. I wanted to ask a question thinking about the centennials of James Baldwin last year and Malcolm X this year. And a quote that Malcolm X said, if you want to understand the flower, study the seed. And as you all have iterated so well today, how your activism works in the community, with institutions, academic and sacred, I want to know how you would inculcate that in your practices in the community to be able to further seed us in our understanding of how we must go.
Yeah, well, basically, we need to clone Carolyn. I mean, because it is the person. It's the person. It means a lot. I've worked with Carolyn the last few years. I've known her for over 20 years. And your love for community, your community organizing as a professor at MIT, bringing all that together, what you did and what we did with the Hack in the Archives is incredible. Archivists, activists, students, faith-based groups. Incredible. So when I say I feel good about that, that's the Boston I want to see.
No, thank you for that. And Lamerchi, thank you for the question that is essentially asking us to go deep, right? We're going deep into our sense of the seed, the DNA of community, and I would say the DNA of possibility. And Ron, I have appreciated the chance to work with you and Lamerchi on this Hacking the Archive work, which is so much about having community look at a longer timeline of protest histories, of organizing, to know that people have been fighting for many of the issues that we're talking about for a long time, whether it's housing, jobs, or education, or just justice in general. These fights are not new, and the lesson is that the demands have been unmet. And so if there is a seed for us to remember and to drill into, it's that recognition that the demand is waiting for us to still meet it. And I say for me, a lot of this has been an extension of my own learning in my family. So my family came to Boston from West Virginia. There are families from all over the South in Boston, not many folks from West Virginia, but we made it here. My family, they were coal miners. And they came here in the late 50s and 60s, like a lot of Black families, just looking for opportunities to work. And there were no real opportunities for them. It's like, seems like every single door that my family tried to knock on was closed, whether it was a door for housing or jobs or education or what have you. And so my family, like a lot of families, have had to be very creative and try to make Boston work for them. And I think what they brought with them, fortunately or unfortunately, is this idea about self-determination and self-reliance. And I think the Black radical tradition teaches us so much about what it has meant for people to have to rely on themselves and make their own way, whether it's in the nonprofit civic world and certainly in the faith-based world, that there is that seed of understanding that we don't need to wait for government. In fact, we should never do that. In any instance or anything in our history shows us the way that we have corrected, led, or rejected government. And I feel like the moment that we're in right now is a similar call.
Amen.
To say that the message, the mission is outside of these walls, whether it's government or the academy or the nonprofit world, and that the seed is truly within us. And so I feel like that's the lesson. I don't know if I need to be cloned, but I think that message should needs to echo out for us, because that is the true call of our DNA, of what we know we are inheriting as Black diasporic communities. But again, I feel like we have to recognize our Indigenous brothers and sisters that have been so tightly aligned with us in that struggle and have been teachers to us as well.
Yeah, thank you. We have a question from the audience.
Good afternoon. I'm so delighted to be here. My name is Kina Banda. I'm the project manager for Hacking the Archive, and share the pleasure of working with Carolyn. And my question is really around mentorship. Carolyn serves as a mentor and a colleague to me. And I realize that there are these connections that naturally and organically happen across our city. But for me, what would be really important to know is how, as a rising executive or a young person who's really committed to activism in their city and to see change happen in their city, whose feet should we be sitting at? Who are one of your mentors? How do we encourage this kind of transference of knowledge? We talk about archives, we talk about still pictures, and reimagining what's happening in that moment. As you talked about, Ron, the decades of the 70s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s coming through. If I was born in 2000, I have no idea what was going on then. So I want to talk a little bit about that encouragement and acknowledgement transfer between generations in the present moment, and who are the people we should be listening to? Who are the people we should be at their feet? And we have several greats: Mel King, rest in peace; Sarah Ann Shaw, rest in peace. Those that have led before us and have gone on. But I'm really encouraged that we have a new vanguard of leaders here, and I'd love to know who we can be looking towards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of my mentors are very, very sick, or they have passed away, as far as me. And I think that at some point, we have to be more intentional about our mentorship as we get older and we connect with young people. I think it's about relationship building. Dr. Crockett, I knew her since back when she was a teenager, and I preached to her father's church. I'm not her uncle's church, and I know that they were hardworking men, And I think that when we have relationship with people, then they can lead us to people who can help encourage us in a particular area, whether it's education, whether it's academically through resources, whether it's someone in the religious community. Because with me, I think it's, my perspective on things might be a little different from the ones who came up in my similar organization. You know what I'm saying? Because, I read I read up on Malcolm X. I know what he stood for, right? Marcus Garvey, you know, read upon him, know what he stood for. And so I think that sometimes we get stunted in terms of our connectivity with solid mentors because times have changed.
Right.
And we have to be able to flow with, don't lay aside your values, but be able to adapt in a way that you can connect with the next generation of young people. You know?
Yeah. Well, just like you, Pastor, many of my mentors have passed away. As we know, Dr. Virgil Wood, then we had Mel King, Sarah and Shaw. They were my mentors. We shared some of the same mentors. Hubie Jones is still with us. God bless him. But I've become a senior citizen. I can say that now. And I'm a senior citizen. And
That's a stretch.
yeah, well, you look at my birth certificate. But, you know, I think it's important that we sought out mentors. We have to go to different places. We have to get involved. We have to volunteer at times with a stipend so that you can really get in the mix of things. Well, how about you, Carolyn?
Well, I would just love to pick up on the bishop's comment about young people and appreciate the question, because in the question was the idea that mentorship is two-way. And I wonder, when is the last time anyone here has had a conversation with someone between the ages of 15 and 17 that's longer than 30 minutes? 30 minutes of a conversation with a young person that you know or don't know can be really powerful and instructive. And I think that some of the greatest teachers that I've had have been young people.
Right.
And every chance I get, I try to see if I can listen in when my cousins, if they let me sit with them when they're chatting, or even in my neighborhood. I live near Tech Boston Academy, and I had a walk in my neighborhood today, yay, TBA. And I think they're finishing exams and things like that. But sometimes just trying to listen to what's on young people's minds feels so important, and something that we fail to show up for. And when I think about so many of the great movements of the 1960s, whether it's the Civil Rights Movement or the Black Power Movement or the Women's Movement, these were young people,
Right.
often at the front line. These were teenagers who were leaving school to be able to sit in or protest. And so it's really young people that allow us to see far into the future and can really inform how we guide our steps, but how we think about our actions. And so I definitely want to appreciate the senior folks who are in the front line, and folks who have passed on that have shaped me as well. But I think that young people have to be really centered in our minds and hearts, because they're not just the future, as we often say as the cliche, but right now they're holding us.
Right.
And so much of what we're building are things that we will not see or experience. And so we need to be informed about not only whom are we building with and for, but what are we creating. And then I'll say this in closing, in terms of this work that we've all been building on with Hacking the Archive, so much of that has been really trying to center multi-generational sense of wealth, and how young people's understanding of what that is can again guide our steps. And so really want to just make sure that we are putting time in our hearts and in our minds for young people that we know or don't know. This library is filled with young people. I used to come here and study for the SAT. My math tutor used to meet with me upstairs. So there are young people all around us, and we deserve to make sure we make some time to be connected to them as our mentors and teachers.
Yeah. How important is relationship building? You know, we talk about mentorship, the one-to-one,
Yeah.
the co-mentoring or so forth. During COVID, we were stuck in the house. One
Right.
person you got to know was yourself, because you didn't have anyone around. And one of the photos that was shown on the slides was the time we had the national kickoff in my backyard in Milton,
Right.
which was an awesome time, dunkable in spaces and nationally in various cities. And how important, when you talk about going outside the four walls of church, the tremendous job you do with outreach, how important is relationship building and organizing and activism?
Well, the relationship building is about trust, and about who you can feel comfortable sharing yourself with them, so they can give you an honest assessment of where you are, where you need to go. And so our problem in Boston, as it relates to Black community, is that we work too much in silos. And therefore, you ask somebody about one person, someone have a different perspective on that person, because they may not be in their particular silo. So we have to break out of that, and we have to be more inclusive as it relates to building community, but it all starts with a trust factor as we build and go forward.
Well, that concludes this episode, and I want to thank our panelists,
thank you.
Dr. Crockett, Bishop Dickinson, and our live audience. In the words of Frederick Douglass, in the spirit of unity, he said, "We are one, our cause is one. We must help each other in order to succeed." Keep on amplifying.
Yeah.